Okay, hello everybody. Let's just get this all loaded up. Perfect. So hello and welcome to the last instalment of the StressLess series. So this is where we're bringing all of those lessons together and we're looking at creating a stress-free life. Okay, so in today's session, we'll cover the tools and techniques to move us out of stress and overwhelm and into peace. So let me ask you this. How will it feel at the end of this session to know what to do right now to leave stress behind? That's where we are focused today. So this is a revisit of everything we've done so far. And it is bringing it all together really succinctly for you to follow. So it's really important that we understand that there will always be triggers. Okay, it's an unreal expectation to expect to go through life and, you know, we end up in this magical, wonderful world where we just don't ever get triggered because that's not reality. But we can choose how to respond them, and therein lies the power. Okay, where so many people just live at the whim of their emotions and they're triggered left, right, and center, especially now with the media, especially with social media. They spend their life scrolling, being triggered all the time. And, you know, I've said this before in the training, now more than ever, we are realizing how immensely precious life is. And you've only got this one go. Like there's only 24 hours in a day and you can't get that 24 hours back. So let me ask you this. Do you want to spend the next 24 hours at the whim of what everyone else is doing and saying and being triggered and not being able to understand your emotions? Or do you want to be that person that is taking back the reins, taking back control and saying, no, this is what I want today to mean for me. This is what I want the next 24 hours of my life to look like, because this is my life and it's important. Okay. So when it comes to triggers, we have the choice. Do we continue to feed them with our thoughts and our actions, or do we let them go? Now, remember when I talked about triggers dating back to our caveman days, you know, we come face to face with a big grizzly bear that triggers our stress response. Now, we are obviously not designed in that moment to have all of these thoughts that we continue to feed about keeping the bear there and keeping that stress going. We want to deal with that situation and let it go. So, you know, that fight or flight response in our brain is saying, right, do you think you can fight the bear? Probably not. Right, is there a safe space I can run to, or can I freeze and play dead? They're your three options, really. So it is about, once we have dealt with that situation in some way, say we've retreated back to our cave and it's safe there, we're then not designed to keep like feeding that bear in our head and go, oh, but what if I'd have done this? And, you know, what if we hadn't have chosen this place as a cave? And what if I'd have selected a different route when I'd gone out that day? Or like, you know, we can feed that stress internally. And that's not what's meant to happen. It's meant to be a case of, right, that situation happened, it's dealt with, you know, right or wrong, whatever, that situation's gone now, move on. We need to allow our bodies to move out of the stress response and into the relaxation response. So the first thing about living this stress-free life is recognize we're being triggered. So there's 3 ways that we can do that. We bring awareness to our body. We become aware of our bodily sensations in that moment. And you can do this multiple times throughout the day. And I really recommend the more you tune into yourself, the quicker and easier this whole journey becomes. So is your stomach churning? Is your heart rate quickening? You know, are you taking small, shallow breaths? When was the last time you filled your lungs with air and took a deep breath? Have you got any, you know, aches and pains that are developing that you can't understand? They're all signs that a stress response has been triggered in your body. You can also bring awareness to your thoughts. So are they racing? Are they on a destructive loop that you just can't escape? Are they making your physical responses worse? So I think it was the second session when we talked about triggers, we have external internal triggers. So if something externally has happened, maybe you were involved in a car accident, everything was fine, everyone was fine, no one was injured, that's an immediate stress trigger. You then deal with the situation, everything's okay, you then come home and then you start replaying the events. And by replaying those events, you're triggering the stress response again within your body. And that's when we can get stuck in that stress cycle. And lastly, by bringing awareness to your language and your behaviour. So this is definitely one of mine. Have you started to swear a lot? So I typically don't swear, not in the public arena anyway. But when I am stressed, I will swear a lot. David's learnt that it is one of the signs that stress is building within me. For me, it is just sometimes there's no other words to use than a swear word to sum up what's going on. So that's one area that can show you that you are being being triggered and your stress response is rising. Are you snappy? Are you moody? Are you drinking or smoking more? So it's like I've said previously, we get so used to being in a stressed state that we believe that's normal. And so if you are used to having stomach or digestive problems, or your heart rate beating quite quickly, then we don't always necessarily realize that we've experienced another trigger or that we are becoming more stressed. So this whole process begins with awareness of ourselves and just allowing whatever responses, whatever thoughts and feelings are there, just allow them to surface. Okay. So a badge of honor is what I've entitled this. We need to stop putting busyness and stress on a pedestal. It isn't okay that we glorify these states. I am aware that typically in our Western society, we have developed a badge of honor for being busy and stressed. It's like we're not working hard enough, or we are not putting in enough effort if we're not in a busy, stressed state. Now, there has to be a fundamental shift in society, but that begins on an individual level first. Any kind of movement that has ever started in the world has started with an individual. Now, I'm not saying you need to go out and mass campaign now, But you need to decide on a personal, individual level that that chronic stress is not okay for you anymore. You are worth more than that. And you are making the decision to bring your life into an alignment with relaxation. Okay, it begins with you. Let's drop for a moment the pressures we might experience at work, or the deadlines, or the unrelenting boss, or whatever it might be, and let's just make a decision for us right now in this moment that we are going to decide, or we do decide, that chronic stress is not okay for us anymore. Okay. So when we, and like we said in the very first StressLess series installment, the change begins within our own filters, within our own mind and our thoughts and beliefs. So the external event is still going to happen regardless of whether we are choosing stress or whether we're choosing relaxation. The change begins within our own thoughts and our own beliefs and our own processing, which then leads to our actions. So that's where our responsibility comes in. And here's the thing, okay, the switch in itself is easy. We only have two systems that work together when it comes to stress and relaxation. We have the fight or flight response, which is our stress, anxiety response, and we have the rest and digest, which is the relaxation state. You are either in one or the other, stress or relaxation. Those two systems don't work at the same time. They trigger totally different responses within the body. So you can't be a little bit stressed and a little bit relaxed. You are one or the other. It's that simple. We switch between those two states instantly. Okay. Our physiology makes those changes instantly. Now, what takes time is our neural motorways and our default positions, which is what we touched on in the first session. And the stress hormones that are released when we are in the fight and flight response can take a few hours to subside, which is why even after a stressful response, a stressful incident, when we've entered a relaxation state, it takes a good few hours. And actually, in the case of certain types of adrenaline, it can take 2 weeks for that to totally work its way out of our body. So we need to allow the space and the time for our minds and the physiology to catch up. But as for our body changing state, that happens instantly. And a really good example of that is a screaming, crying toddler. So I'm sure if you've not experienced it personally, you will have seen it in a supermarket for sure, where there is a toddler who decides to have a complete screaming meltdown because maybe the teddy has fallen out of the trolley and nobody's noticed, and in that moment it is the most stressful thing in their life, and their stress response is triggered and they're in this really horrible state, and then somebody comes along and distracts them with a lollipop, and within the fraction of a second they have stopped crying and they are smiling. That's how quickly our body changes. Yeah, there is nothing like observing responses in children to realize just how quickly our systems are designed to switch. So I'm telling you this because that part of this work is easy. That's the easy bit. We don't need to complicate it. We're either stressed or we're relaxed. Simple as. What we need to do is prime our neural motorways and our physiology to get used to being relaxed. And that's practice, practice, practice. Alongside that, there is no such thing as failure, only learning. So don't strive for perfection, strive to learn with each experience. So I've included the photo here of my 5K obstacle race, which I spoke about in one of the sessions. I can't remember which one it was now, where throughout all of this race, I was telling myself, I can't do this, I can't do this, whilst at the same time still physically jogging around the obstacle course. And so it is a case of, there's no like, you know, enlightened stage where we get to where we have this nailed to perfection, particularly if we're tired, if there's a lot of stress triggers going on at the same time. You know, it's hard to sum up the energy sometimes to be challenging our thoughts and deliberately doing those relaxation activities. So please don't look at this as a pass or a fail. You know, don't get caught up in this, oh well, I've gone back down that rabbit hole again, and I should have known better. This is all a process. This is life. Yeah. And with each time you bring awareness, with each time you challenge those internal thoughts, you will learn, you'll get quicker, you'll be able to catch them so much better, and shift that state. And there's a great quote from here, it's used a lot, it's from Michael Jordan, and the quote is brilliant. So, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and miss. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. We've just started watching this series about him on Netflix, and it's really fascinating to have a glimpse into his psychology. And it really is about embracing the times when we're not going to get it totally right, and just learn from that and be willing that that's all part of life. You know, I think Michael Jordan now is worth over $1 billion. I can't remember what David last told me, 2 billion maybe. You know, you don't reach the next level in your life, whatever you want that to be, by getting it perfect all the time. It's just not how it works. And I didn't want to finish off this series without bringing play into it, because it's so important. So children are naturally in their rest and digest state most of the time, particularly babies. It's pretty much what they do. I think their most stressful time is when they're waiting to get fed, or there's something else going on in their little world. So in our natural state, we are meant to be in this rest and digest place. And children naturally play. Okay, it's a big part of our learning and development. It's a big part of wiring those neural pathways. It's where we use our imagination and our creativity, and yet we seem to lose this as adults. Yeah. I remember when I was going through my counselling training, and I've always been like very serious, you know, didn't really embrace being a child too much. Even when I was a child, I've always felt a lot older than my years. So when I was going through my counselling training and we were discovering all of these creative, playful techniques that we could use to access sort of this relaxation state, it really dawned on me about how we really lose this as adults. And particularly when we are in our stressed, when we're in that fight and flight response, we're in survival mode, play is the furthest thing away from your thinking. Okay. So when was the last time that you allowed yourself to just do an activity just because it was fun, just because it was creative? Yeah. When was the last time you gave yourself permission to just be and have fun and have a laugh, and, you know, it not be goal orientated and it not be for a purpose? You just play. So a good question to ask yourself is, where in your life are you serious and it feels heavy? Because that's a good indication as to the areas of your life where you may be in more of a stress state than others. So it might be that you're in more of a stress state in a working environment. So it's all very serious, very heavy. You can switch states a little bit easier when you get home and you start to play with your children. Or is it because you're in a stress state at work, you bring that home and then you're not able to play and engage with your child because you are in too much of a stress state to do that? So really engage and play around with this. A really good thing to do is, you know, if you have got children, you know, observe and be a part of how they play. Join in with that, allow that inner child of you to come out and play, but also just be creative in your own right. You know, get some paints, just, you know, scribble. Throughout the years I've used all sorts, Play-Doh, little dolls, all sorts, just, and whatever the things were that really you enjoyed using your imagination when you were a child, or what games you used to like playing, then really use this as a time to bring an element of that back into your life. Because when we're in a state of play, we are relaxed, we're accessing that creativity. It's an incredible healing place to be in for the mind and the body. So to bring it all together, the stressless life, it begins with awareness of ourselves and our thoughts. Then it's about choosing to get curious about them and find another way. We then need to discover our relaxation blueprint, which is what we've talked about, and committing to that state every day. So like we've said before, 10 minutes every day trumps an hour a month. Okay, consistency. Get your body used to being in that relaxation state. Decide that you are worth more than this. You are unique and you'll never get this time back. You know, like I've been saying all the way through this series, stress and chronic stress will not sort itself out. You have to take back control. And recognize that this is the most important journey that we will ever make for ourselves. It's truly life-changing. If you can live your life in the state of rest and digest, the relaxation, the, you know, this kind of flow and play and creativity that we were meant to be in as human beings, your life will change in massive ways. Yeah. So in summary, and I've taken this straight off what we've talked about before, there will always be triggers. Okay, so it's about understanding we have control over our thoughts and they shape our beliefs, which in turn affect our state. And coming back to this relaxation state is key. So I'm going to leave you with this. Our body makes the switch easily. That's what we've learned in this session. However, it takes our minds a lot longer because of those ingrained neural pathways and motorways. So I've developed a specific program that guides you through this journey and supports you for a whole year. It's brand new. It's called the Aligned Life Program. I'm just putting all the details together on my website at the moment, but please do drop me an email if you're interested. This program is designed to give you a huge amount of support for the first 8 weeks. Okay, so that's about the amount of time that it takes us to start addressing these areas in our lives, making those shifts. Then for the remainder of the year, we then switch to monthly sessions that support you in living this out. Okay. Like I mentioned before, I've lived and breathed this. It was only about 3 years ago that I was literally on my knees with stress and anxiety, and there was just no way I could continue the life that I had. And it was made doubly worse because it was my business and I'd created the very thing that now I was struggling to even face every day. So the switch to get me out of stress and into relaxation happened relatively quickly. I would say that within a month, I'd made really significant changes that enabled me to get back to functioning as a human being and start enjoying work and life again. So that happened relatively quickly. However, the following 12 months were a massive journey in this whole process of learning the state of relaxation for me again and making those choices daily. And it was really hard. And there were times when I was tired and I was worn out and I was exhausted, and I would switch back to the default stress responses and I'd have to pull myself back out again. And so I have devised this program specifically to be your support throughout that whole process. As you can see from this series, it has been packed full of information and tools and techniques you can use right now to get you out of stress. They are tried and tested and very effective. What takes the time and where the work comes in is ingraining those new pathways into our lives and into our way of being. Now, when we're in a stress state, we tend to think it's all or nothing. You know, in order to access relaxation, my whole life's going to change. I'm going to have to quit my job. We're going to have to move. I don't even know if this relationship that I'm in is good for me anymore. We believe it needs to be a drastic change. Now, hear this. I was in a bad place 3 years ago. There's not anybody outside of my immediate family who would have known anything was going on. And when I made all of those shifts and I changed my whole stress response over the following year, still no one would have known that anything had changed. Okay, so from an external point of view, it's not that you've got to make some kind of drastic sudden life changes. Yeah, it's the internal work that matters. And that may very well lead you to seeking another job or following a passion or changing some of your hobbies. It might result in that, but please don't assume that just because there is all this external stuff at the moment that is seemingly triggering you, that it means that all of that has to change in order for you internally to be in a relaxed, aligned state. Okay, so do contact me for more details about that program. It will go live as of May, and I'm currently only opening up 5 slots for that. So do get in touch, and I will be back with you with more information about stress and deciding, giving you lots and lots of information about how to discover your relaxed state. Bye for now.